right now, and we will start this up right about 10:02. Okay, it is 10:02, so I will go ahead and start this meeting. It does look like we still have some people kind of filtering in compared to what we do have registered, so they'll be able to kind of catch up as we go along with the presentation. But let me go ahead and start the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. My name is Russell Calvin. I am a recruitment analyst over here with Department of Transportation, also known as Caltrans. And I just kind of wanted to thank you guys for joining us today on this webinar. I will go ahead and get my presentation set up for you guys so that way everyone can see it, and then I will hand it over for some introductions and everything like that for us. So just give me 1 second. Perfect. And everybody, you guys can see our presentation, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So, as I said earlier, you guys, my name is Russell Calvin. I am a recruitment analyst over here with Department of Transportation. Been with the state for now about 3.5 years. I graduated with my bachelor's degree from CSU Stanislaus in business entrepreneurship. Um, and I am joined today by my colleague who is going to be manning the chat box named Jonathan Rivera. So, Jonathan, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Thank you, Russell. Good morning, everybody. Like you mentioned, my name is Jonathan. I've been with the state for about 5 years now. Caltrans for about almost a year and a half. Um, I'm gonna receive my bachelor's degree from CSU Sacramento, and yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Happy to be here.
Um, Today, we are joined by two subject matter experts. Our first subject matter expert is going to be Jeffrey Carr, also known as Jeff. He is an associate environmental planner in architectural history. And then we're also joined by Giselle Ruiz, and she's a senior environmental scientist and archaeologist today. So, Jeff, as I said, is an associate environmental planner, architectural history. His working title is an architectural historian, section 106 reviewer with the Cultural Studies Office in Division of Environmental Analysis at Caltrans headquarters. Jeff reviews cultural resources, management reports, maintains the statewide historic bridges inventory, provides training in Caltrans district cultural resources staff, and assists with other historic studies and planning activities. Jeff first joined Caltrans in January 2021 during the pandemic as an environmental planner for architectural history down in District 7, Los Angeles, before shifting to Caltrans headquarters in June 2023. Before Caltrans, Jeff worked as an architectural historian and archaeologist for a consulting company, WSP, in LA as a lead cultural resource specialist on the California High Speed Rail program for the Southern California region. Originally a Midwesterner, Jeff graduated from Iowa State University with a BA and an MA in anthropology and an MS in architectural studies. Before moving to California in 2012, he worked for a few cultural resource consulting firms, Harvard University's Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology, the Georgia Department of Transportation, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the State Historic Preservation Office of Iowa. While Jeff is kept very busy by his 2 kids and 2 dogs, he manages to find some spare time to play guitar and work on his own historic house. So, Jeff, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick. Say hello. Did I miss anything?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, the gist of it is I've been kind of all over the place. So I've been following my wife's career around the country. She's an academic. So I've got experience in archaeology and architectural history, primarily doing architectural history here at Caltrans
Okay.
Studies Office. Yep.
Okay, cool. So very glad to have you on. I definitely think you were chosen for us because you have a lot of experience with the state and outside of the state. So it's definitely going to be some good insight from you. So I will go ahead and introduce our other subject matter expert, Giselle Ruiz. So Giselle is a senior environmental scientist. Uh, she's a specialist classification in archaeology. Her working title is Cultural Resources Specialist with the Cultural Resource Studies branch at Caltrans District 7, or District 10, sorry, not 7, District 10. Giselle performs and oversees the field and office work of environmental scientists and environmental planners responsible for the completion and implementation of the most complex study methodologies to ensure cultural resource compliances within Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act and other applicable state and federal regulations. This includes the authoring and review of specific reports completed by in-house staff consulting and local agencies. Additionally, Giselle advises the office chief and branch chief on cultural related, policy related issues in the district. Before joining Caltrans, Giselle worked as a cultural resource specialist for the federal agency NRCS. During her time in graduate school, Giselle worked as an archaeological field and lab technician at Tetra Tech and an archaeologist research center at CSU Sacramento. Giselle received her BA and MA in anthropology from CSU Sacramento. In her spare time, Giselle enjoys listening to podcasts, crafting, and spending time with her pug, Ava. So, Giselle, did I miss anything?
No, you got it. I've been at Caltrans for only a year, but I've been doing archaeology for almost 10 years.
Yeah, and I did see you were also selected for us because you definitely did do also bring that federal background coming in with us over to the state. So it was kind of important for us to be able to pick you and share your journey and everything like that to showcase some of the differences between federal and state and how they pretty much intertwine. So those are going to be our 2 subject matter experts for everyone today. I'm going to go over a couple of things on our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about who our department is, who we are, what we do, and the opportunities that we offer as well. Our subject matter experts are going to give us some of their insights on a few different questions, why they chose Caltrans, a couple of the projects that they're working on, X, Y, and Z. But in terms of that, we will also have a Q&A session towards the end of it. So if you guys can, please refrain from asking any questions in the chat until the end. I do have a team member manning the chat today, Jonathan, and he will be answering any questions that he can and dropping some links inside the chat box as well that are going to be important during our discussion. A few housekeeping rules, like I said, please wait until the end of or towards the Q&A session. And for those Department of Transportation employees, please refrain from asking any questions having to do with specific projects or anything like that. This is more of a general presentation and webinar than one going over specific projects. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and play this video and we will get our session started for today.
Ready that combines technology, innovation, and a positive impact on the environment and community? Look no further than Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation. Join us as we explore some of the state-of-the-art technologies that we are incorporating into our projects to engineer the future of transportation. Safety is our top priority. We believe that using drones is a game changer in ensuring safer roads for everyone. Surveying hazardous areas, inspecting bridges and tunnels, and assessing road conditions without putting workers at unnecessary risk is a great advantage. Our acquisition of state-of-the-art UAS unmanned aircraft system technology allows us to be in multiple places at once, access high-risk areas safely, and fly instantly from anywhere. We are one of the first departments of transportation in the nation to utilize this equipment. With over 100 trained drone pilots statewide, we are revolutionizing the way we utilize technology, allowing us to make informed decisions that lead to improved safety measures and faster response times. Piloting the use of augmented reality helps us to visualize a new roadway, structure, utility, or feature in the actual dimensional space upon which it will be built. We're work zone ready with well-equipped lighting on hard hats, ensuring the visibility of our field workers is not compromised and giving us the ability to assess work sites at all hours of the day. We aim to provide a safe and reliable transportation network that serves all people and respects the environment while honoring our values of engagement, equity, innovation, integrity, and pride. At Caltrans, your career options are limitless. We provide comprehensive job rotation programs, mentorship opportunities, and a supportive work environment that encourages personal and professional growth. Whether you're an aspiring engineer, a tech enthusiast, or a community-driven individual, Caltrans has the perfect path to start your career. Do yourself a favor. Come and join us. You would make us better.
Okay, so with that video, as you guys kind of saw, opportunities for us within the state of California are statewide. Working at Caltrans kind of allows for diverse opportunities up and down the state. Whether you prefer like mountains of Tahoe or Yosemite, the Redwood Rainforest, coastlines such as Big Sur, or in some cases, for the time being, the comfort of your own home, we've got those opportunities for you with us still being able to do some teleworking. So, Jeff, how many days as of right now are you in office?
Currently, it's 2 days a week.
Currently 2 days a week, and you're in headquarters, which down in Midtown?
By the Capitol, yeah.
By the Capitol. Okay. Giselle, what are you looking at for your days in office right now?
I'm also in office 2 days a week.
Okay. And then you're in District 10, right? You said?
Yes, the Stockton office.
Yep. Cool. All right. So Caltrans is split up into 12 districts. Our department starts from the Oregon border, stretching all the way down to where Mexico begins. So as you guys can see, District 1 and 2 are all the way up at the top, right where Oregon, and then District 11 is where we would close out, even though District 12 is right above it, but District 11 touches the Mexico border. For those of you who are not working at Caltrans right now, we do have quite a few of you guys inside of this session. Do me a favor, just so I can get a pulse, what districts are you guys looking at being a part of? Go ahead and utilize that chat box and just kind of drop in there which district you guys are kind of more looking to be hired within. Jonathan, what are we looking at for interest in terms of where people are wanting to work at?
I'm seeing a lot of Los Angeles, a lot of Bay Area, some D2s.
We got anything for D10? I've got a big job opening in D10.
We're calling D10. Oh, yep. Blanca.
I've got a senior spot in D10 actually. Cool. All right, so random fun fact for everybody, Caltrans headquarters in Sacramento has the most employees. We got over 5,000 workers at headquarters, and then it's next followed by District 4 Bay Area, and then District 7 in LA with a little bit over 2,500 workers. So our department's mission is to provide a safe and reliable transportation network that serves all people and respects the environment. And then our vision is a brighter future for all through a world-class transportation network. Some of our goals include leading climate action, which we have done by addressing advanced complete streets and zero emission vehicles, piloting new materials and renewable fuels, and investigating nature-based solutions, along with a multitude of other strategies. We also aim to advance equity and livability in all communities by adopting new approach focuses on collaborative community and partner engagement, measuring impacts on public health and community vibrancy, and prioritizing and investing in historically harmed and segmented communities. So with that being said, you guys, I want to turn this over to our subject matter experts, Jeff and Giselle. Are you guys both ready to kind of answer some questions and go over a few things?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to ask you guys both the same questions. We'll kind of bounce back and forth and take some, let you guys each have your time with answering them. But Jeff, let's go ahead and start with you. What led to your career focusing on environmental field?
Oh boy, it's a long and winding road. Do we have, I don't know how much time we've got, but
we've got some time.
Okay. I mean, I've been doing architectural history for over 20 years, but sort of it started early. You know, just as a kid, my folks would take us to history museums and those sorts of things. And I got interested in archaeology and history and other cultures and things like that. So, and as a teenager in middle school and high school, I took a lot of architectural and mechanical drafting. So I was gearing up to be an architect. I thought I was going to do that. But once I got into college, I bounced around a little bit, and I finally landed on anthropology because I really was interested in historical archaeology and wanted to kind of focus on that. So that's where I landed as an undergraduate. I worked, you know, I finished up, I worked for a year as an archaeologist, decided I wanted to come back to grad school so I could be the boss and get that master's degree. So I went back to do archaeology. And while I was I took a historic architecture course or historic preservation course, and my professor there said, you know, this dovetails really well with architectural or with archaeology and cultural resources management and preservation. And we have a double degree program here. And so I went
and this was at Iowa State?
At Iowa State. So I basically got to design my own curriculum there in architectural history, historic preservation, you know, match it up with archaeology, do one big thesis, and that's kind of where I got into architectural history. I worked out of grad school. I worked primarily as an archaeologist and doing Native American repatriation work and museum work, and then eventually landed in Atlanta, where my wife was working on her doctorate, and that's where I started working for a consulting firm, doing both. I thought I could do both architectural history and archaeology. So I started getting into architectural history there, and then a little while later I went to work at the Georgia Department of Transportation, where I was primarily an architectural historian. That's really where I cut my teeth doing compliance with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act and transportation planning. So that's really how I got into my current field, and I kind of stuck
into the current. Okay.
Yeah.
Giselle, what about you? What led to your career focusing on environmental field? I know you said you've got what, like 10 years of experience in federal?
Yeah. I went into college not really knowing what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted it to be some sort of science-based discipline. But I really like the show Bones. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
yeah.
It's about forensic anthropologists. And I was like, that looks really cool. I want to do that. So then I took a couple of anthropology classes and, of course, archaeology classes, and kind of started falling in love with archaeology. And then I realized that you needed a PhD to be a forensic anthropologist. So I don't think I could do that. So then I kind of...
Jeff almost got there. Jeff got his MBA also.
No, I got a couple masters, but yeah, I never, I didn't, there wasn't anything I wanted to study for 7 years straight, like one subject.
Yeah. So I kind of fell into archaeology, and once I decided, I started in community college. I started volunteering at the archaeology lab there, analyzing a historic hotel in downtown or Old Town Sacramento. And then I applied to Sac State. I got in. I got my master's. I also volunteered at the curation facility there. And then I applied to grad school at Sac State, got in, worked at the research center there. And then my professor sent me an opportunity with the federal government, and I applied, and I got in. And I'm the kind of person that doesn't really like to switch from job to job to job. So like this federal position is like secure, and I'm good here. I would only leave it if the opportunity with Caltrans opened up. And thankfully it did. So I'm very happy to be here.
So, I mean, I'll start with you, Giselle, because it kind of you're basically leading me straight into my next question, right? So you said you wouldn't leave federal unless the job with Caltrans came up. Why Caltrans? Like, what made you choose Caltrans? Why was it so important for you that the only opportunity you would take would be Caltrans?
Yeah. Obviously the stability and the benefits, right? Depending, I guess, on how your life is set up. My husband is self-employed, so benefits and everything is really important to us because he doesn't get any of that. But other than that, Caltrans, specifically Stockton, I grew up in District 10. So I like that I can work in the community that I grew up and really see firsthand how we're improving the community here. And as opposed to like the federal government or the private sector, you work on these larger scale projects that you really don't see the end of it because they maybe last so long. But at Caltrans, you drive these roads every day, so you really get to see the impact you're making.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I grew up in District 10 also, so getting into the field that I'm in now, view things really different. Like you look at it at a completely different scope now. Jeff, what about you? I know you were talking about how you were kind of following your wife around as she was chasing her career and everything like that. You were in Georgia and then made the move over to California. What made you choose Caltrans out of everything? What led your way to Caltrans?
So I was already familiar. I mean, when we moved out here in 2012, and I was already, I had already spent 5 years at the Georgia DOT, and actually we stopped for 3 years in Iowa before coming out here. And I was there. I worked at FEMA for a year, and I knew that. I knew transportation planning. I knew cultural resources within the context of transportation planning, and so I thought it would be a really sort of natural transition. I was working at the State Historic Preservation Office at the time in Iowa when we moved out here. I actually applied for an architectural historian job in District 7, and I didn't get it. That's
Really
back in 2012. Yeah, no, but I came back around. So my career went sort of a different way. I worked at Cal State for a couple of years doing grants compliance, and then got back into cultural resources. And then I was working on high-speed rail as an embedded consultant. I had a state email and everything, so it felt like a state job, but it was a consultant job, and that was winding down. And so I had a decision. I could either continue with the company and start working on other projects with different clients and go back to sort of a regular consulting life, or I could start looking for other things. And then an architectural historian position opened up in District 7. So I jumped at that. I applied for it, and actually the one thing that really made me feel like I knew I was going to make the right decision and go with Caltrans was my boss at the consulting company had worked for Caltrans for 10 years. And she said, I absolutely recommend it. You need to go. This is like, it makes sense for you and you won't regret it. And so I took her advice, and she was right.
So that I mean, you guys doing a perfect job of segueing me into all of my next questions. So, like you said, you were at a consulting firm, right? And it was a private consulting firm.
Yep.
So what do you think then? So if you're already in that position, pretty much, you're working with architectural history already at this private firm. Um, what do you think what set Caltrans apart, and what ultimately helped to push a little bit more towards being like, hey, you know what, like
Mm,
that's the route to go. Besides your boss saying go towards Caltrans, because you could have gone to another private company, you
right.
could have gone federal, you could have, you could have gone a multitude of routes.
Hmm.
Ultimately, you said, hey, let's just go towards Caltrans.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, when you talk about sort of the difference between private sector and public sector, what often comes up is like paying benefits, paying benefits. You know, you give up pay for benefits, but that's not, it's too simple an argument. I don't think you give up pay at all, because these positions pay really pretty well at Caltrans, the planner and the scientist positions. But for me, having experience in both, and I've worked for several consultants and several agencies, so I've kind of seen it all.
Yeah,
And
and you worked in various states as well, so it's
yeah,
like
and
you've seen it.
different regions, different disciplines. And what I found, what's really most important to me and most striking is that there's the fundamental difference for me between public and private is sort of the fundamental mission. It sounds corny, but it's true. It's like when you're here, we're all sort of, we have this one mission, mission and vision, and what we're working toward, and there's no, and everything is sort of getting poured into that, towards making progress towards that. Where at consulting, and not to dis consulting or private industry, they're different priorities in
Hmm.
industry. But really, the pay is comparable easily. And I was just looking recently, and I'm like, I think the senior specialist, it makes as much as a senior architectural historian in the private sector around here, honestly. I feel that at an agency, there's a little bit more, I don't know, respect for work-life balance. You don't, I don't ever feel compelled to check my email on Sunday morning, where when I was a consultant, I kind of always had my phone on.
Yeah.
And I really like sort of the structure and stability of working for Caltrans. I mean, I remember as a private sector employee, I remember experiencing downturns in business that made folks nervous. And that can affect state workers too. It happens, sometimes they talk of furloughs and things like that occasionally, but I've never, working at an agency, I've never had a conversation about my billability or my utilization numbers and things like that, in
Hmm.
terms of whether, they can keep folks on. So there's that too.
Yeah. Giselle, what about you? Like, you were in the federal, um, you were in the federal system for quite a bit of time. I know a lot of people from the outside kind of just look at it as like public versus private. What ultimately pushed you more, besides the benefits? I know you said that earlier. Well, what ultimately pushed you a little bit more towards staying or coming with us at the state system versus just finding another federal or jumping into private?
I can't speak to all federal agencies because I was only with NRCS, but at NRCS, my job was very archaeology focused. Like, I only really spoke to other archaeologists and the project planner. But with Caltrans, I like the interdisciplinary collaboration that I get. I work with a lot of other technical specialists, biologists, design, and engineering. So I feel like I learn a lot more, and we kind of get these little insights in what we each do to, like Jeff said, complete our mission. So I really like that. And then also at Caltrans, there's more promotional opportunities. I was in the federal government for 5 years and never got promoted. I was here for 6 months and promoted.
Yeah.
So that's really good. That's a really good
I
benefit.
think speaking on the promotion, like the career growth path, I've got a slide in here that we're kind of gonna showcase over them, and I think both of you guys just recently in this one question touched on some pretty big pointers where I'll probably have you guys reach in and kind of give us a little bit of insight on that next slide. Giselle, we'll start with you for this next one. What projects are you most proud of? And kind of like either what projects you're most proud of, or like what are you currently working on? Give us some insight on like what you're doing.
Yeah, the projects that I'm most proud of are probably safety projects. We have this one project in Merced County where they are putting in a roundabout for safety reasons. And when I went out there and did my survey, I saw a lot of like memorials for people that have crashed there, and I really was like took a step back and I'm like, wow, like we are actually helping this community be safer. So safety projects are really up there. And then the broadband, it's not a transportation project, but basically, you know, making high-speed internet more accessible. And it was the bane of my existence when I was working on it. But
Because I was assuming you're going to areas where there's no high-speed internet.
yeah. And it was really complicated, really big project. But at the end of it, I was proud of what we could accomplish it with such, you know, rigorous work and time opportunities for that. So, yeah, safety projects and broadband are what I'm most proud of.
And I think like going back off of like your safety project, like somebody from the outside, like myself, like I mean, I'm a recruitment analyst. I'm not an environmental scientist. I work with you guys on a different scope. You know, we discussed a few different things, but like we don't think necessarily as much as about like the safety things of a roundabout. Like you're putting those in because you're seeing those implementations and you're doing the research and doing the studies on that versus the normal person just sees it as a roundabout. So I mean that's kind of like the crazy part about it. So Jeff, you as well. What about some projects that you're most proud of? What are you currently working on? I know you said you
So,
did some
yeah,
architectural historian stuff.
yeah. So, I mean, my current job, I'm at headquarters. So most of what I do is oversight and review and some training. So I don't have really specific project type ownership over it anymore, but I did at the district. And even the ones that I review now, I guess the ones that are most rewarding and meaningful to me, I'm a preservationist first and foremost, you know, and so the ones that are really I find to be rewarding are the ones that involve, you know, kind of the stewardship of state-owned historic properties. Um, and what comes to mind most often are sort of monumental bridges. You know, we have a lot of bridges, historic bridges that are significant and historic, and it's meaningful to be able to. It's rewarding to know that you have a role in sort of preserving their historic integrity, their significant, you know, aspects of their significance, while bringing them up to, you know, current safety standards, so they can be, you know, people can continue to enjoy them and use them and that sort of thing. So that's sort of that's the heart of preservation, is making things so that they can continue to be used, but that process to bring them up to sort of current standards is done in a way that's sensitive. And I mean, I have a project on the Golden Gate Bridge on my desk right now. I'm
That's
looking at like it's yeah,
that's what I was gonna say, right? Like
that's one of them. Yeah.
when people think of California from the outside, like the Golden Gate Bridge is like one of them right off the back, and that's
Right.
what you work on, that the Bay Bridge, Bixby Bridge,
Hmm.
things like that, right?
Yeah, and one thing about working at Caltrans, and I guess this goes back to your last question, about why Caltrans. I've always felt like when you're working, I remember going from a private consultant to the transportation agency in Georgia. They're going, why are you doing that? You want to go to work for those guys? And what I found is that you have a lot more power to affect like positive change. You're sitting next to the engineers and explaining things to them, so you can steer the
Mhm.
ship from the inside, and that's really rewarding. And
I guess that's like what Giselle was saying earlier, right? Like she, like you guys have the opportunity now to work with everybody. So it's not just like you're sitting there focused and tunnel vision and everybody around you is also tunnel vision. You're gaining the exposure to the whole broad project and you're working with everybody as a team towards that
yep.
project and making that impact. Cool. So last thing I have for you guys before we move on for our presentation is what advice, Jeff, do you have to give somebody that's considering making the jump from either private or federal sector over to Caltrans?
Just do it. It makes complete sense. I have absolutely no regrets when I've transitioned from private to public sector, especially Caltrans. Even sometimes I'd done it and I meant a pay cut, and it was okay because it made up for it in benefits. And I was able to move up the ladder very quickly. And I appreciate the people here. The teams here are really great to work with. The core mission, like I said earlier, is really important to me, and the structure and stability. In fact, I've got a graduating high schooler right now who's going to college, and I've told him I was trying to push him towards civil engineering or something, and he's not interested. I'm like, dude, go to school, come back and go to Caltrans, because you can move around the state. There's so many different opportunities. There's just so many jobs available. So if I'm recommending it for my son, I'm all in, and it's a good place to work for sure.
Giselle, what about you? What would you recommend, or what advice would you give somebody considering making this jump over to us?
I would say at first glance, the application process is going to look very daunting, but once you break it down, it's not that difficult. Always reach out to whoever they have listed on the job posting, and they could I'm sure they can help. Other advice I would give is, if you do get a job at Caltrans, it's so much to you're gonna have so much to learn. At times you're gonna be like, what, I don't know what I'm doing, but just give yourself grace that there's a lot to learn here, and you will have a lot of fun learning that stuff as well.
Cool. So I just want to go ahead and thank you guys one more time for this session and everything like that. I will be reaching back out to you guys shortly as we go over a couple more slides, but thank you guys so much for all your insight. And let's just move on to the next slide. So you guys said it, you guys both talked about it a lot, right? Like the benefits. Giselle, it was one of the biggest things for you to speak on the benefits that we offered, and you said it was really important. So as you said, medical, dental, vision are three of the main benefits that we offer. But then Jeff kind of spoke on it, a lot of that retirement and certain things on the back end that we do get as well, because we do get a pension. We do obtain that. We can still have a 401k as well if we decide to enroll in the 401k, but the retirement benefits are really, really good there. You guys both touched on the positive impact with the community because we're so involved with everything as we can go. And I think the biggest thing that the three of us can honestly talk about is the work-life balance that you do obtain from going from federal or the private sector into the state sector. I mean, I personally worked in a completely different field. I thought I had work-life balance. After you put in so many years working in your job, whatever sector it might be, you get into a groove and you think you have that work-life balance. But I think I truly did not understand what work-life balance was until I made the jump over um, to the public sector at the state. And I mean, I don't know if it was like this for you guys, but like my friends had to get readjusted to the fact that I was actually available to attend events and go to like kids' birthday parties and things like that, and actually show up to the party on time, and not be 5 hours late because I was working in the private sector back then. So um, it was really, really different for me. Back then, so I definitely learned that work-life balance for us. So the next slide is one that I wanted to discuss with you guys really, really quickly, and this is where I said I'm probably going to be leaning on Giselle and Jeff quite a bit on this one, because we did discuss career growth, right? Like we were talking about how, Giselle, you came in 6 months later, boom, you're promoted up. What did you come in as when you came in with us at the state?
I came in as an associate environmental planner archaeologist.
Okay. And then now you are a
Senior environmental specialist. I'm sorry, senior environmental scientist specialist archaeologist.
okay. Jeff, you came in with us originally as a
So an environmental planner. So Caltrans has been transitioning some planner positions to scientist positions. So I came in as a planner and was promoted to associate planner. And then when I moved to headquarters, it was just kind of a lateral shift. So I'm still at the associate level. Yeah.
So you guys will easily both be able to speak on this, and this kind of showcases the career ladder that we're going over. So for those of you also still paying attention, this kind of shows that you can continually grow, and these two are prime examples of it. So if you came in as an environmental scientist with us, and let's just say you have a bachelor's degree and a major in a biological, chemical, physical, or environmental science, soil science, water science, X, Y, and Z, or closely related scientific discipline, you can come in as an environmental scientist. There are different ranges within there once you kind of peak out. For example, we're looking for one right now, a senior environmental scientist in archaeological or architectural history. You can move up into that next range. And if you have 2 years as an environmental scientist, range C, or if you have external experience, you can with the 5+ years and a bachelor's degree. But it doesn't just end there. There are ranges within that. Giselle's on her range within that right now with the being a senior environmental scientist specialist. You can get promoted once again. You can go up to environmental program manager as well, range 1 or 2, and you can see the pay scales do continue to grow with you, kind of like what Jeff was saying earlier in his discussion, that you are compensated as you continue to grow to be very competitive. But similar to what Jeff was saying as well, he took a lateral move, so there is opportunity to be able to continue to grow down a different path and still make that impact while still focusing on either archaeology, architectural history, any of those environmental scientists type of fields. How do you guys feel about these career paths? Are they pretty accurate? Do they give you a
Yeah.
lot of room for growth?
I think it depends. I think it varies district to district, and it's sometimes there are senior specialist positions at districts, and maybe not others. I think just reach out. I know this one that we're trying to recruit for at District 10 is a senior specialist, so that's sort of one that everyone wants to shoot for. I did want to add one other opportunity that folks don't always think about. There are lots of opportunities for temporary assignments too.
I was a temporary assignment, or not temporary assignment. I was a
Try,
temporary agent.
yeah, if you want to try something different, like an out of class assignment, I took a out of class assignment where I got to lead the group for 4 months, and it was really rewarding. It was really challenging. And you get that extra bit of experience you can put on your resume when you're applying for the next promotion. So
Giselle, how do you feel about this? Is this pretty accurate, you feel?
I think it's pretty accurate. I got into the senior environmental specialist based on my years of experience.
And you said you were a planner, so you were on a different line, like a different branch per se.
Yes,
from this,
exactly.
and kind of made the shift over.
Speak on this, but also like the bargaining contracts make a difference as well, because if you're a planner, you're in a different bargaining unit than a scientist.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we always like to show this because it does show that continued growth. And I know, Giselle, you kind of said that, like in the private sector, it was a little difficult. It was a little difficult to kind of get those promotions and keep moving on. But we definitely like to always showcase that Caltrans does believe in its people and wants to make sure that, like Jeff said, an out of class or something like that, it gives people the opportunity to continue to grow and just be with the company long term. So I'm going to go over a quick little section for us about how to apply. I know Giselle said it gets a little scary. It gets a little complicated at times. We'll do the simplified form, and I did see that there's a bunch of questions on there, so I do want to make sure I give you guys enough time to ask those questions. But the simplified version is going to be, you're going to go on calcareers.ca.gov. You're going to take, for example, that senior environmental scientist position that we were discussing earlier in District 10 for architectural history. You would take that exam. If you're looking at an environmental scientist position, you'll take the exam for environmental scientist position. It's more of a self-assessment, and then you would apply for jobs. If you guys have any questions about this, which tend to come up, like Giselle was saying. Reach out to us at askrecruitment@dot.ca.gov. We've created actually a website to help out with the application process. We'll be able to email you guys that website, and we'll also be able to email you guys any information needed and answer whatever questions. That Ask Recruitment inbox goes directly to us as a team. So we have somebody manning that at all times during our office hours. With that being said, let's go ahead and open up for some questions that people might have. Jonathan, I know you've been sitting there behind the scenes, manning that chat box.
Mhm.
What do
Yeah,
you?
so we do have a few questions. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. What do we got? Oh,
Yeah, so first question, if you possess a BA in bioarchaeology, but have an analyst background, what would be an entry-level position within Caltrans to get into the environmental side of things? Currently in RDA 2, but at some point would love to transition into environmental.
I would probably say the environmental scientist position off the top of my head, just based off of a quick thought process of what you said. Um, that's the route I would suggest. You would definitely want to probably reach out to Ask Exams just to kind of make sure things kind of fall in line there. But also, like Jeff was saying, I guess like an out of class, if one of those do pop up for that would be pretty beneficial, right? Wouldn't you say, Jeff?
Yeah, if there's a temporary position that you can meet the qualifications for it, totally go for it. And that sort of sets you up for when a permanent position opens up.
To move over from RDS into as an environmental scientist. So I would definitely say probably a environmental scientist. Um, not a senior level position, but environmental scientist, the standard one. What else do you got for us, Jonathan?
Got it. Someone just asked right now, what is the process of changing environmental planner classification to environmental scientist?
Giselle, you're going to be a lot better at this one than I will. What do you got? What'd you go through?
The position opened up and I just happened to meet the minimum qualification. So I took make sure you take the exam because the planner and the scientist exam are different. And then you make sure you meet the minimum qualifications. And I applied, you interview again, and hopefully you get picked.
So based pretty much what you're saying is because the qualifications for both of them are a little bit different. You just want to make sure you're meeting those
Yeah,
qualifications. Versus I guess like you could say like similar to what Jeff said, if you are within the state, taking an out of class or some type of training and development to possibly move over from there.
yeah. The scientist position, it's in the name. You have to have maybe more science classes because the archaeology degree is usually a BA and not a BS. Or if you have a degree in like bio anthropology or bioarchaeology, like the person said,
Mhm.
then you'll meet those qualifications.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for that. What else you got, Jonathan? I saw
Uh,
quite a few in there.
yeah, we're knocking them out. James asks, uh, he is a 10-year Caltrans employee. He's back in school for BS in physical science. He asks, are there jobs in field research or environmental impacts that doesn't involve a lot of in-office creating PowerPoints and reports?
Jeff, you got something?
I'm not sure what the day-to-day like looks like for the biologists. I'd reach out to one of those groups to see what their day-to-day is. But
Yeah,
I mean, in the cultural, we have opportunities for field work, but then you got to write up your results. So it can be kind of a balance. It depends on what you're working on. So
yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go with it too, right? So it's just really going to depend on the branch you're in, really, and where you're at. I hate kind of giving that answer. It's a lot of times where it depends, but unfortunately, it just really does depend on where you're at. Given that everybody's going to be under the same classification, but what's going to really vary is what branch and division you're working in with it. So unfortunately, it will depend, and best way to figure that out is talking to somebody or reading the duty statement just to kind of get an idea.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what kind of work you're doing. Because I mean, like archaeologists spend more time in the field than architectural historians just because it's more intensive.
Mhm.
And we can do so much on desktop. So it just really kind of depends.
What else you got, Jonathan?
Yeah, Michael says, I was told I didn't qualify because I have a BA in archaeology and not a BS. Has that changed?
That's going to be something like a question that they're going to have to reach out to exams. I won't have the nitty gritty on that one because I unfortunately won't be dealing with that part of the MQs. But they can reach out to Ask Exams at dot.ca.gov, and they'll be able to kind of double check if there was an update to um, the degree needed, BA versus BS.
Mhm. Got it. This next question, maybe we could just shed some light on the entire application process as a whole. Someone wrote, my friend has applied through CalCareers for Caltrans jobs. How long does she need to wait to follow up on her applications?
So we'll touch base on the whole thing, like you kind of said, right? Applying for the state's a little bit different, right? Applying private sector, you apply and they can just close out the job whenever they want to. They can make a hire that day. They can literally take your application, call you in, hire you right on the spot. With us being at the state, it does take some time. We do want to make sure everything is as fair as possible and everybody gets a fair chance. So nobody's application really, or candidates don't really get reached out to until after the final filing day has closed. And since once the final filing day is closed, we do give the analysts some time to kind of make sure things are properly in order before handing it over to the hiring manager to review for potential interviews. I would probably say anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks before reaching out to a hiring unit contact. It can be shorter, it can be longer. It just depends on the hiring manager and how fast they want to move along. But I would probably say give them about 4 to 6 weeks before sending an email to the hiring unit contact that's listed at the bottom of the job ad for any type of update on where the application status is. And that hiring unit contact should be able to let you know exactly where they are in the process. John, I got time for about 2 more questions.
Got it. Let me see. I guess this should help a lot of people. So currently working as a GIS data analyst and field data collector with mobile and drone data collection experience. I have a BA in history. What entry level Caltrans jobs should I focus on?
They work in GIS, you said?
Mm-hmm.
And the degree is in what again?
BA in history.
You can meet. You probably wouldn't meet today, but you could meet qualifications for architectural history. So we go by We go by the Secretary of Interior's professional qualification standards, and that's it's a minimum, typically a minimum, a graduate degree in history or architectural history, historic preservation, or a closely related field. But you can, with a bachelor's degree in architectural history or something related, qualify as long as you've got 2 years full-time experience doing that kind of work or substantial contribution in the field, something like that. So if you're able to get that kind of experience, you could meet sort of an entry architectural historian job. If you could find that
There's a chance, right?
Yeah.
So that, and then that would, like you said, that would be environmental scientist, architectural history,
or environmental planner, either one.
or environmental planner.
Yeah. I'd search for both of them when you're looking. Yeah.
Cool. And Jonathan, let's go with one more before I start wrapping us up.
Let's see.
I do want to say, I think GIS can go towards land surveyors, but you would need a LSIT, unless the degree is in GIS, but you said degrees in history. So you would need, with the GIS work, you just get an LSIT and you could go towards land surveying as well with us.
Got it. And then one more question. So regarding T&Ds, I guess just a little bit more information about the T&Ds, whether, for example, the question is currently working as an AGPA, can you do T&D for entry-level positions? So I guess just shedding a little bit more light on the T&D opportunities.
They would be able to. It's just being on the inside, you would have to double check to see what's available and what they're looking for. Right, Jeff? Oh, so your mind's turning.
I'm just looking at the chat, looking at the link.
Oh yeah. It's gonna vary. I do know some people that took T&Ds, but it's gonna depend on what is available. I can't necessarily just say like, hey, this is an entry level position, because I know a few people that took upper level and transitioned from like an SSM2 to a planner. It just varies on what they're looking at and if you're gonna meet those qualifications. Do you have any well, I'll take one more question. Jonathan, do you have something in there that's somebody not from Caltrans, not from DOT?
Let's
Or
see.
were those questions answered?
Let me see, because a lot of DOT folks in here.
If not, it's cool. That'll bring us up to speed, and I'll give everybody some time back.
Eric asks, he's a recent graduate with a BA in geology. He's curious if we have any positions in GIS. And I think I saw somebody in the chat drop research data.
Mhm.
I was also thinking of Division of Engineering, right? That'd be GIS.
Land surveyors
Mm.
also for GIS. But then like Jeff was saying, but Jeff was more reaching out towards history for that other candidate on the history end. But with the GIS, a lot of it could go towards land surveying, really towards that direction. But yeah, other than that, I will go ahead and give everybody their time back. I want to thank you guys once again for joining us on today's session. We got a lot of you guys in here, a lot of great questions. If you guys have any other questions at all regarding any of our positions, including that senior level position that we discussed, feel free to reach out to us at askrecruitment@dot.ca.gov, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you guys might have. If you guys have any questions for either of our subject matter experts as well, please feel free to reach out to us at the Ask Recruitment inbox, and we'll do our best to get them over to them to manage during their workload. I know they're both very busy, and it was great for you guys to kind of carve out some time for us. Other than that, you guys are good to go. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.
Thank you.